Telepathy, psi abilities. Who has them? Can anybody have them? Are we all telepathic? And if we are, how do we develop that? Oh, we're going to talk about all that and more with the wonderful Kai Dickens, the creator director of the Telepathy Tapes, coming up on the show. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day, and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive, with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105 FM, streaming out of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, hitting around 120 countries, and we're streaming on 8 platforms today on StreamYard, and we've already got a little audience. Hi to everybody that's tuning in: Vladdy, Lisha, Susan, Heidi, Shirley. Everyone's so exciting. Look who's in the house, Kai Dickens. Yay! Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Karen. Kai. Very excited to be here.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I was just telling Kai before we went live that I was watching a Joe Rogan show and I saw him mention the telepathy tapes. I think that was last year. And I'm like, Joe Rogan is talking about telepathy. What is this telepathy tape? So I was, scouring the internet, like, what is it? What is it? And I started researching, like, who's putting it on? What are they talking about? And I saw a whole lot of people talking about it, but I didn't see you at that stage. Like, I didn't see the people involved in it talking about it. So I reached out to you last year and said, come on the show. And you said, yeah, sure. And then I think the tsunami of interest happened. I think Joe was a big part of helping you hit, zoom up the charts. Was he? Do you think it was?
It happened right before, like when Joe took notice, which we weren't expecting any of this. I just want to say, we had no Instagram account. We had no social media. We had nothing. We had no money. We had no PR, like nothing. And so on Christmas Eve, I believe, of last year, I started getting all these messages saying, congrats. And I thought, what are they talking about? It's Christmas Eve. And we had just, I guess, overtaken Joe Rogan in the charts. And so
cool.
By the time, so we hit number one, and it wasn't a long time, maybe for a few weeks. And that's when I think Joe Rogan noticed us. So we had already kind of got that, that level of, recognition. And I think that kind of caused him to recognize us in return.
Bless his heart. I was so blown away when Joe Rogan was talking about telepathy. I thought, I've been talking about this stuff for a long time. And I thought, whoa, the world is really changing. And it's so exciting. And I'm such a big fan of the show. I'm going to cry all the way through this. And my little group, a lot of us are big fans of the show. And as I said, I brushed up on many of the episodes yesterday. But let me tell people, I don't know if you've had your head in the sand or you don't know what we're talking about, and you don't know who Kai is. Let me just tell you a little bit about Kai. Kai Dickens is an award-winning filmmaker celebrated for her transformative documentaries, which tackle complex social issues, influence public policy, and ignite cultural change. Known as a storyteller and at the intersection of film and social impact, she has received numerous accolades, including the Focus Award for Achievement in Directing and the Changemaker Award for advancing social change through art and film. And as we talked about, Kai recently ventured into the audio storytelling with her groundbreaking podcast, The Telepathy Tapes, which explores telepathy within the non-speaking community. I think you've kind of you're exploring it through every community now, aren't you, Kai? And raises profound questions about consciousness and human potential, lauded as a paradigm shifting and groundbreaking. The podcast has topped charts, as we said, and is now being developed into a feature film slated for 2025. So do you think the film will come out in 2025 or maybe next year?
It'll be out next year. Yeah. Yeah. We're editing it. I think we'll probably wrap it up end of this year, but it takes a while then to figure out your festival premiere and all of that distribution strategy.
Absolutely. And we were talking about before we went live, it wasn't an overnight success. It looks like an overnight success, but when I was exploring, I saw a quote from your wife, Kai. I'm going to get her name wrong. You told me how to pronounce
Kaisa.
Kai with an A on the end. In 2022, you pitched it as a docuseries, but got rejected. So which was disappointing because you'd invested so much time and money in it. So you went, cool, let's make it a podcast. Because when I was listening to it, I'm like, why aren't I seeing this? Why am I just listening to it? Like, what's going on here? And then I found that. Like, tell us what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I had spent maybe 3 or 4 years really developing relationships with first the scientist who had discovered, she was a Johns Hopkins and Harvard trained neuroscientist who had discovered that non-speaking autistic individuals were able to pass telepathy tests with their parents and teachers and often their coaches. And so she looked into this and figured out this was happening. So I think part of it was really getting to building a relationship with Dr. Diane Powell, earning her trust, and then the families. I found that yes, Dr. Diane Powell had been researching this, but then I was finding that this was worldwide, that families all over the United States, to Australia, to India, to Africa, to Mexico, to everywhere you can imagine, Israel, had been reporting this. Teachers had been reporting it, and it was just a huge web to pull together because even though it was being reported, it was still silenced. Of course, if you're a parent recognizing this, people might think you're bonkers or just this really, hopeful, quote unquote, autism mom, as one of the moms likes to say. Or, for the teachers, they felt like they could lose their job. For the scientists, they could lose funding or lose, really a lot of their credibility. And that has happened repeatedly throughout history when a scientist pushes a new idea. So trying to earn the trust and the access and put it all together, figure out what the story is and how to best lay it out and get the world to understand that this is real took years. And then what I was hoping to do was to lay it out as a docuseries. And, I thought this is going to be a docuseries that can maybe really shift and break open humanity in a new way. And I've done a lot of projects. I've never felt that way. It sounds very high and mighty and grandiose. And I never think that about anything I'm working on. Is just a project, but this felt really, really big. And so when pitching it, and we pitched it all over town in Hollywood, with one of the best production companies, a documentary production companies in particular, and everyone loved the pitch. I've never heard this before. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. Often people are saying they have the world and they have a golf ball, but this is a whole universe. People were crying. I mean, I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is going to get to the masses. And then we got no after no after no after no because it didn't fit the mandate, or it didn't. What is it? It's not child TV. It's not paranormal TV. It's not reality TV. It's not this. It's that. They had no idea what it was. And so it was all rejections. And it's actually interesting because for me, I felt like, it was a devastating moment, a dark time. And most people who know me, like my family and my close friends and my wife, Kaisa, will say I don't ever give up. But I've never been as broken as when that didn't go. I remember getting the final call and just collapsing into her arms in the grass and sobbing. And I was like, I failed all the parents. I failed all these kids. I failed all the teachers. And she's like, you can still do it. And I'm like, there's no other options. Are you kidding? And she's like, you can make it into a feature film. I'm like, there's no money. Everyone just said no, and then she's like, you can write a book. I'm like, parents have written the books. Everyone's written books on this. Not everyone, but a lot of people who've experienced this is it needs something to get out there. And it was maybe 3 weeks of just kind of moping around, walking past the hard drives that were all dusty and thinking, what am I going to do? It's over, and I don't ever feel bad for myself. It's not even in my register. So it was weird that I was feeling this bad. And then it just kind of dawned on me one day. It's like, wait a second, you don't need anything. You don't need money. You can make it as a podcast. And I remember getting really excited. And I called a lot of the family members and some of the scientists and researchers involved. And I was like, we're going to make it as a podcast. And I think almost every single one of them thought that was a terrible idea. They're like, well, first of all, these people don't talk, the non-speakers who are your main subjects. How are you going to make an audio podcast with people who don't talk? Use of subtitles.
Yeah.
And then it was like telepathy you have to see. Even spelling, which is a way to communicate by pointing to letters if you don't speak, has been stigmatized unfairly and almost like uneducatedly has been stigmatized for various false reasons. But you have to see spelling to believe it. You have to see telepathy to believe it. You have to speak to. So everyone was like, this is bad. Like, why would you do that? And I think some of the parents and scientists were like, we thought it'd be a docuseries and that could really reach people. And this feels like kind of the plan, not even B, but maybe plan C or D. I'm like, yeah, it is. It totally is. But I just had this gut feeling. I was like, I know that this is how it was supposed to go. Like I had it. It felt like a very much like a claircognizance, like certainty, like a destiny point. Like, oh, it has to go this way. Even a docuseries would have been 3, maybe 4 hours max. And there's so much there. There's so much hand holding. There's so much that needs to be done. It ends up being done over 10 hours, right? And then I was just focused. And I think I kind of went off the map starting last March. May maybe. For like 50, 60 hours a week, just writing, pulling it all together. And when we released it, I thought, okay, I hope done right by the families and the scientists involved. Like this will be out there. At least I can sleep at night. Like I took their stories and I put it to the world, and now the world can decide. Who knows if it will go anywhere, but at least I got it out, And we, like I said, we didn't have any advertising. We didn't have an Instagram channel, a Twitter, nothing, X, whatever. People were like, you should do that. But I was like, I don't have time. I'm just busy getting all this together. So what happened next is just so surreal. It's that it got found and then it resonated and that people really, really took it in, beyond my wildest dreams, really, of what could have happened for these individuals and these families.
Yeah, as Susan says, she says sometimes it's divine timing. And yeah, as you say, making it a podcast, maybe making it a podcast, an audio only podcast rather than a video podcast was, it's kept me with bed. Like I can't wait to see the video footage, actually, to see the doc. Yeah, it's exactly how it's supposed to be. Rhonda Byrne, who made The Secret. Did you remember when The Secret came out?
Yeah.
She had exactly the same thing before it went viral. She had a year of she had a contract with a television station. She worked as a producer for a television station to make the series. And when she made the documentary, they hated it because they were mainstream and it wasn't. But they were contractually had to air it. Yeah. But they waited a year, but right to the end of the contract before they aired it. And in the meantime, she had to recover millions of dollars that she'd sunk into it. So that's when she started selling the DVDs and making it into a book. And she had to change gears. And we had to bring the DVDs out from the States or out from where she was, because it wasn't allowed to be sold here in Australia, but we were importing them and selling them. Yeah. Anyway, but the rest is history, as you say. And so I want to get into some of the episodes. Just blows my mind. Shirley says blows my mind all the best ways. And Penny just multitasking here. I think the telepathy takes are brilliantly put together. They are enlightening conversations that have helped me grow. Oh, this is good. I'm
I can see them. They're sweet. They're so sweet. I'm seeing the Facebook messages pop up, and it's so lovely.
Thank you for not giving up. The tapes are awesome as well. Thank you so much. Oh, Penny, you're going to make me cry. Everyone's going to make me cry. Yeah, we're big fans. So you put it out as a podcast, and yesterday I went over there and I was listening to all of it all over again because I love the way that it takes you on a journey. It takes you on a journey from that skepticism, and you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And as I said, when I reached out to you last year, I didn't think that maybe you could have that conversation with me like we have on the shows, but boy, can you. I mean, just keep listening to going down that rabbit hole. Now the talk tracks and season 2 is coming out. Wow, it's been such a journey. I've loved seeing how you've opened, because you came into it pretty skeptical but interested, and it's blown your mind. Do you want to talk about your journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I was ever a super closed-minded individual. I think curiosity is, I would say, my number one element of my personality. But I was not the type of person that really believed like stones had energy, or I'd never, ever, ever, ever had a psychic or medium reading or anything like
Uh-huh.
that, And so walking into like telepathy, I didn't know what the story was. And I think that's sort of fun as a documentary filmmaker sometime. I mean, it was like, okay, maybe the kids have really good like hearing, or there's some sort of like cueing or signaling going on, or maybe there's some sort of like, or maybe the scientist is like slanting that. I had no idea, because I was like, something's here. It's
Oh dear, we've frozen.
fascinating
Frozen.
was,
Oh,
oh,
yes, you're back. You
okay.
froze for a tick. Something's
So
here. It's fascinating. Was the last thing you said.
okay. Yeah, so I did walk in skeptical, but then for me, it's like the little telepathy tests that we were doing for proof of concept those were impressive. But I think the thing that was more impressive was scores and scores and scores of people all around the world with very similar stories about this,
Yeah.
and that they kind of even knew before their child was spelling, because they'd think I want nuts, and their child would show up with nuts, or they'd hide the key to the pantry or birthday presents, and the child would exactly know where they were, or that type of thing. Or the parent would be having negative self-talk, and the child would start crying and then start hugging their parent. So they were like, what is going on? And to hear those stories over and over again is pretty phenomenal. But then when you see the telepathy tests in person, and it's not even like it has to be that formal. In fact, most of what we're doing the formal ones for this movie, and they're amazing. But the informal ones that we would just do, that you can do sitting at a restaurant, sitting at a kitchen table, it's mind-boggling. And anyone who's seen it is just mind-boggled. Like, even on set, sometimes non-speakers will grab the phone from like a crew member, and they know how to break in. Like, that happened actually in North Carolina recently, and the Houston grabbed the audio guy's phone and like put his password. And he's like, "How do you know my password?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know."
I'm reading your mind.
But Katie was like, "He does that all the time. He does it all the time." And so a lot of these stories were being repeated even from teachers saying, "I don't know," like they would know my password to my computer or my phone. So at a certain moment, it's like, okay, there's something really big going on here. And then, of course, what I found is that the parents were kind of spoon-feeding me things once I kind of was led into the inner circle, I think, in a way that they thought I'd be comfortable with. And so it was over truly the course of a few years, where it's like, oh yeah, there's many, many languages they can speak, my child can speak and we can't explain why, or, my child can commune with the other side and sees spirits and angels, and can go somewhere else, or can retrieve information from the field. And I think every time I heard that, I thought, okay. Like, I wasn't sure what to believe. I wasn't believing it. But then all of a sudden, another parent would say it, or I'd spot check it with someone and say, "Hey, I just heard this from XYZ. Does this track?" And they'd say, "I didn't think you were ready to know that, but yeah, we can tell you our stories." And so it was like the scales kind of falling from the eyes, and why I think the non-speakers are such great stewards of this message is, there's actually a few reasons. One, there's been so many, especially in psychic abilities and mediums, there's so many. There are good ones, there are real ones. This is a real gift. But there have been so many charlatans, right, throughout history. There have been so many fakes and people who've exploited or really made money off of people when they're most vulnerable. So I think that can be tricky for a lot of people to like parse through, well, what's real, what's not real. And here are a group of individuals who, at least not yet, from the most part, can't make money, don't have, social standing, often aren't even in school, have nothing to gain, have no career to like skyrocket, have no fame to acquire. It's often a very insular life. And again, we're all going to change that together. And so for non-speakers, they have no reason to lie about this. But beyond that, it takes so long and so much effort to spell out anything. It takes so much motor control and so much patience. And so anything that they are spelling is usually they do not mince words, And so when someone's taking the time to tell you, like, I see this spirit here and this is what they have to say to you, you sit up and listen. I think when it's a non-speaking individual delivering that message.
Well, I know, and you get into that in episode 1, actually. I think Mia can see spirits and read minds and emotions as well. What I loved about it, I think it was Michael, your cameraman in episode 1. I can't remember. Maybe it was episode 2. Yeah. Okay. And he's a total skeptic. And you said it was great that he was a skeptic. Like I brought him along because he's a skeptic and he's watching all this unfold. And do you want to share what he says to you? Because I loved that.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually like, so the comment you're talking about is in episode 2, but in episode 1, I'll get there. Like, I wanted to rent a house to do telepathy tests where I controlled everything, not Dr. Powell. Not that I doubt her, but I wanted to like airtight everything. So I bought the telepathy cues and did this and the mindfolds and took down all the TVs and screens and mirrors and set up all the cameras so that you couldn't see a reflection in them and all that stuff. We saw what was happening and it was like mind boggling. And, Michael was a skeptic and tried on all the blindfolds and you could tell that he was really blown away after that. But then the next individual we saw, and Mia, our first person we tested, she was like most non-speakers actually probably when they're typing with a letterboard, they're sitting next to someone kind of spelling into it as the person holds the board. Well, this is amazing. So the next person we went to go see, he just types into an iPad across the room. It's awesome to watch. And he could do telepathy tests from not just across the room, but under a blanket, under the room. So you could point to something in a book and he'd tell you what you're pointing to. You can point to a picture in a book. It was mind boggling. And at one point, Michael had to go charge batteries downstairs. And he really is quite a skeptic. And I found him and he's kind of shaking and he had his head in his hands in the camera battery charging room. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Does this mean I have to believe in God now?" And I was like, "Well, it means that there's more than we understand. That's for sure." But he was really shaken up and it's been really fun to watch his evolution as well. Pretty much everyone on our team, because for a long time it was just me really experiencing this and talking to families and kind of putting it together. And it wasn't until we started the film that I could like have help really. And I hired a few different producers and production coordinators and assistants and, all these things that help a film go. And they started meeting the families and having the same experience. So it was really fun to kind of watch a whole new group of people go on that same ride. And my assistant, Catherine, was real skeptical in the best way. Like always like, well, people are saying this on the internet and we should look for this. And like, I was like, yeah, do anything you want. Like, and I think that she like tried to poke it and break it from every angle to the point where sometimes I was frustrating. I'm like, is she a mole? Like, what is her deal? And then and then you saw her have the cognitive dissonance when she's like, oh my goodness, this is real. This is real. This is all real. And, and now she's like totally like me.
She's into it. She's
bought in.
It's so cool. Also, Michael says, "Do I have to believe in God now?" I just loved that. Now I see it. He says, "It's not that it is happening, but what is the explanation for it?" Like, I love curious minds. I love that he was curious. Yeah. And Vladdy has a question here, which is a question. You've read my mind, Vladdy. Vladdy's reading my mind. Kai, have the kids tried to talk to you telepathically? Like, have you received messages from the kids? Are you talking to the kids telepathically?
I think so in dreams, because there's been 2 times I know of, like, and I didn't think I knew it was them, but there was at one point where I had this like something, and it felt more clear than a dream, that we had to shoot the hill shoots for the film in Iceland. And I thought, Iceland, like that's really expensive and that's really random. And then I was like, I guess that's my idea though. So maybe I like didn't know. I just figured, okay, I'm having a dream about this and it's my idea. But then the next morning, I kind of wrote to some of the families. I was like, I had something happen last night. Will you ask some of, any of your kids if they try to communicate with me? And Katie emailed me and she's like, Houston wanted to let you know to shoot the scenes for Iceland in the movie. So I was like, okay, they are trying to get to me like when I'm sleeping, I think, And then Kyle, who writes music with his mom in dreams, like at one point she wrote me and she said, Kyle took you in dreams last night to look at some, I think, Egyptian scrolls, but I didn't have a recollection of it. So I was like, I don't remember that at all. So, and I think, yeah, so I do think they are in a bit, but I also have that's like not I think they and I are kind of in an agreement too, that like, I'm not really trying to experiment with that much right now or do any of that. Like, I'm just really trying to like be a good steward of their story. And I don't want to get like taken too far into, there'll be time for that later.
Maybe later. Yeah, maybe later. Yeah, because
exactly.
you're busy getting the story out. I wanted to tell you a story. Like 9 years ago, I had a client who came to me. She was a friend of a friend who had an autistic nonverbal son. He was 9, and she had spent 7 years trying to make this kid talk, and taking him to therapists. And then my friend said, "You should go see my friend Karen. Works as a psychic medium and teacher and stuff." So she brought him over, and that's exactly what I said to her. I said, "Giddy is never going to talk, not the way you want him to. He's actually here to teach us about our telepathic abilities. Giddy is here to teach the world." And then she started, instead of seeing him as a broken child, she started telling me about all the extraordinary things that would happen around him. Like kids in the playground would come up and just hug him. Just like they were attracted to him, like bees to honey. And as she's saying this, he's out the front. I've got this little courtyard, and there was a bit of dirt, with stepping stones, and he's throwing dirt in the air, just having a lovely time throwing dirt around. It was fabulous. But yeah, he was my first experience with what you're talking about. And she's a big fan of the show. And as I said, when I reached out to Catherine, there's not been a group where people can get together and mothers and stuff in Australia, in Sydney anyway, to share, what they're going through, and be great to see that happen.
Yeah. And, we've ended up starting something on Supercast. I think that's all over the world, Supercast, where you can have like a premium subscription without ads. Like I think ours is $6 for podcasts. But the more important thing is there's a Discord channel, which is kind of like a Facebook where you can share stories and talk to parents and ask me or ask, a lot of support. And then there's sort of an Ask Me Anything board. And we have so those for like the scientist, for myself, all sorts of stuff, like more private videos, behind the scenes videos. So that's turning into a beautiful network for people who really want to like engage further and kind of push into this further.
So where can people find out about that? Go to the website.
Super SUPER cast CAST Supercast. And yeah, telepathy. And then if you just search Supercast telepathy, it will come up.
And Vladdy's saying thank you for all the work and effort you put in, Kai. Sending hugs. Yeah, so I think episode 3 is where you get into the Hill, Talks on the Hill, and then you explore it more in episode 4 with John Paul. And I've written down here, no longer asking if it's possible, but how is it possible? Heartwarming story, the consciousness of crystals and stones. Yeah, I think that's when you meet. Is it Asher who has the crystals and the stones? And he's talking.
Oh, that's Houston. That's Houston.
Oh, that's Houston.
Yeah.
Houston.
Yeah.
Katie and Houston. Katie and Houston's story. Oh my God, it's heart-wrenching. It's just, I can't talk about it because I'm just going to cry. But what she went through and the abuse that she went through, and Houston, before she knew he was in there and she could talk to him, he was privy to all the abuse and all the thoughts around the abuse. I mean, it's not easy being telepathic in a world like this. And wow. Do you want to just talk a little bit about Katie and Houston?
Yeah, I mean, Katie really is like such a fierce warrior, and she's going to help us a lot with our impact campaign as we try to roll out that part of what's next, which we can talk about later. But Katie was a single mother of 5 kids. Her youngest son, Houston, had non-speaking severe autism, and I love that picture. Oh my gosh. That's Houston on my left and Lily on my right. But I actually want to talk about that picture in a second because that was anyway, we'll come back to that. But so when Katie, she had this extremely, she was in a very bad marriage with a man who was he was physically and emotionally abusive to her and the kids. And she was scared to leave. And so imagine all of that. And then when she does leave, he's a deadbeat dad and she has to take care of 5 mouths and one who has severe autism. And she's told he'll never speak. He'll never understand beyond a 3-year-old, which is not true. You'll never have a deep relationship with him and that type of thing. So anyway, fast forward, like he's almost, and there been glimmers where she said, he has to be in there because he's laughing at this show, or he is, getting this when he shouldn't get it based on what the doctor said. But then there was a moment where she came home. I think she was working 4 or 5 jobs. Like maybe one of them was, I think it was like Pizza Hut. She comes home exhausted, crumbles onto the sofa, is shaking. I think it's the day before Thanksgiving in America, that big holiday, and out of just exhaustion. And Houston, who's never spoken a word in life, in his life, tugged her blanket and said, "I love you, Mama," and spoke. And that was a big moment because she had hope again. And what I hear over and over and over again, especially now that we're working on the film and there's some new subjects in it, is this story about parents having lost hope. They are given hope. Okay, this treatment's going to work. This is going to work. This type of thing will work. And it's broken and broken and broken and broken to the point where hope is a dirty word. So she had hope. And then it became, again, it felt like the stars aligned, pretty quickly thereafter. She sees someone that she used to know spelling on a letterboard at a restaurant nearby their house. And the father of this young man looks at Houston and talked to him like he was in there. Like, "Hi, Houston, I know you're in there. We're going to get you out." And Katie thought, "What? Like, you're talking to him like he can understand you?" And she didn't get it. But he's like, he's in there, Katie. They've all been in there. Get him.
Oops, we're frozen again.
Hold on.
There we go.
Okay, where to cut out?
Oh, only a second ago. Like, he's in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, he's in there. They've all been in there. And so she said, "Okay, I'm going to try this." And she said she went to like a spelling conference, which when we say spelling, that means pointing to a letter board and communicating by spelling letters out on a letter board or an iPad or that type of thing. So she goes to a conference that is going to teach one of these methods. And she said everyone there was young, these younger kids, and kind of looked at her like, "Ooh, he's too old to learn. Early intervention is key. It's too late." And she's like, "It's not too late, Well, of course, he ends up learning to spell. He's in there. And one of the things I love is that, it takes a while to become open on the boards. I've watched this now many times where when you're first learning to communicate via spelling, you're just focusing on motor control. Okay, the M is here and getting it, and once you get the motor control down. So up until then, you're just at question and answer, yes and no. You're just practicing motor control, not bringing out the intellect. Finally, once the motor control is down, then you can work on intellect and open-ended questions. It's kind of like when you first start driving, you're not going to talk and have a conversation. Now I'm like, and so,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so one of the first things he wanted to share when he was open, he wrote out the Gettysburg Address. And, it's like one of those things where he had it memorized. And Katie's like, "How on earth does he have the Gettysburg Address memorized?" And it turns out, he loves American history. He loves history in general. And it was just one of those beautiful, wild moments. And since then, it's been nothing but miracles, I think, for Katie, because she was so devastated and so low, and so just every day was a struggle. And now Houston's opened up this entire world to her. And he's such a leader. He's been such a leader in the film, and he's just an unbelievable human being. And he can break into
I don't know how to get this photograph back. Anyway, how do I get it back? There we go.
I love this moment. So
that's
yeah, that's Houston on the right and Lily on the left. But there's something about this photo that is so special to me because, almost every non-speaker that's in our podcast has something called apraxia, which is a mind-body disconnect. And you're fully in there. And so often what you want to tell your body to do, your body won't listen. So imagine if you were thinking, "I want to sit down," and you leave a room, or I want to talk, but you just can't, or "I want to hug this person, but instead I'm putting this cup on the ground." It's so frustrating. And we went to find a hill to shoot the hill shots. And we had a bunch of people from, non-speakers who were in the podcast come. And there was a day where it started raining. And I was like, it was our main hill day. It was raining. But they'd be on and off again. So there would be gray stuff guys, which were beautiful. And then there's one moment where it just started pouring. And I thought, actually, this is beautiful. If Lily could stay here and hang out for when John Paul dies, this could be a really beautiful shot. And it's almost like she could hear me thinking it and panicking, because I knew that she'd probably get up because of the rain. And the crew and everyone was just getting into golf carts and leaving. And I'm still there. No. And I'm begging Michael, my DP, "Get the camera out." He's like, "If it gets wet, it's going to cost, thousands of dollars." I'm like, "I don't care. It's worth it. Get the camera out. Get an umbrella up." So I finally get Michael an umbrella and everything up. And Lily is just sitting on that hill still, ready to go. And and Lily has a hard time lifting her head with her apraxia. And I went over there with the camera, and we're all under umbrellas, and we actually have one being held over Lily at this moment. And I'd be like, Lily, okay, look up. And she could do it. Look to your right. She could, like, it's like her apraxia was gone. And then the sun started coming out, and then Houston came back. And then we were able to get similar shots of both of them on the hill together, kind of in like the leftover sprinkle haze. And then I was like, what is happening? They can fully follow direction. They were fully in their body, and their apraxia was gone. And I sat down between them, and I was like, I'm so proud of both of you. And the wildest thing, like, Houston put his arm around me, and Lily grabbed my hand and put it on her. And it was like a puppy cuddle, just from a sweet moment, but that they initiated. And then Catherine's like, let's take a photo. But, so often with apraxia, you have to like, okay, let's put your hand here and let's put your body here. And they organized that whole photo on their own. And Lily grabbed my hand there and put it over her shoulder and grabbed my other hand. And Houston, it was just like so sweet. And there's a young man named Winston that's in the film but was not in the podcast, and he said something once which kind of reminds me of this moment. That's why I'm looping it back together. So someone asked him once, they said, could you function and do this spelling with the letterboard if there was an AI robot sitting there with you and holding it and knowing when to put the board back, so if you lost where you were in space, like, could do the cueing that you need with any task with apraxia? And Winston wrote, no, the presence of a human being, like basically focusing their love and their intention on me, pierces apraxia. What I need is someone else grounding and loving and being with me to pierce this really awful grip on my body. And that's made such a difference just in my life with anyone, right? Like, you think about being fully giving someone your intention. And I feel like for Houston and Lily at that moment, I think John Paul was there and present. And I think something with the water, they all, like, Houston has said he loves water. John Paul loves water. Lily loves water. There was water, there was grass. We were outside on these sacred grounds, and we were all just focused on this moment, just fully them and what they might have been experiencing with the loss of their friend. And it's like the apraxia was gone for 10 minutes. And I remember right when it was done, I was like, okay, let's get Lily to warm coats. And I was like, there's a cabin down there, Lily, your parents can take you, can get hot and warm, and then we'll get you all cuddled up in blankets. And she spelled, I don't need any of that. My heart is so warm due to love.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God. Oh, now we know why this is such a success podcast. I think it was in episode 3 where we introduced to the heel, anxiety cuts off parts of the brain and awareness. So I can't remember who it is. Houston, no, somebody who couldn't speak to the father when couldn't see through the father's eyes, like could do it through the mother's eyes. No, that was a keel, wasn't it? When anyway, we're just talking about the segueing into how anxiety cuts off parts of the brain and cuts off awareness. That was a discussion that you had, and it's not just true for autistic people, it's true for us too. When we're worrying and stress, we're cutting off our own access to inspiration, to spiritual guidance, to our psychic awareness, even to common sense and logic. Like Byron Katie says, when you believe your stressful thoughts, you're in your insanity, like you're in your insanity. But
I wonder if you're talking about Mia. I'm trying to think about, okay, like who, because that was, we tried doing a telepathy test with her dad, and she couldn't do it with her dad, but she could do it with her mom.
Maybe it was Mia.
Yeah. But I mean, this comes up a lot. It's actually interesting because Lily, she's the most like proficient speller with her dad, or also like she spells with a few coaches, like one of her really dear friends, Lizzie, who's one of her spelling coaches, but also has become a good friend, is in the film. But so Lily is great with Lizzie. She's great with her dad, but her mom struggles a little bit. And I think part of it is anxiety and nerves. And the only metaphor I have for this, and I've shared this before, is that like I think about when I watched my 5-year-old son play basketball, and I mean, they're 5, right? So it's like a train wreck watching them play. But some kids knew how to box out, and some kids knew how to go for a thing, and some kids knew what to do. And my son never knew anything. He would just like run happily down the court, never want to touch the ball, never like would go for the ball. And the whole time I was just like, oh God, I can't even watch. Like this is, and like any other kid doing that stuff, it's like, oh, they're so cute. because it's like our kids saddle all of our garbage and our anxiety and our stuff on them. So I'm having a stressed out time watching him play the 5-year-old game, but all the other kids doing the exact same stuff I think is so charming. And so I think that's like the situation that probably Karen feels when she sits down to maybe spell with Lily. Is just like, I want it to work so badly. I want to connect with you so badly. I want to be great at this so badly. And the thing, and she will, because Karen's an incredible mother. But the thing I've learned about spelling is that like you have to just completely empty all out your anxiety. You have to empty
Right.
all of your own stuff out and become a
Right.
grounding vessel, in a way, to help it unlock.
Well, you've just
Yeah.
explained actually how psychic ability works. I mean, people think you have to learn psychic ability. You don't learn psychic ability. We're all psychic. But what you have to relax so that you can receive the messages. The more relaxed you are, the more relaxed you are, the more relaxed you are. It's even depicted in the brainwaves. One of the courses I did in my 30s, the teacher had been married to a hypnotist, and so she taught us about the different brainwaves, the theta, beta, and the brainwaves are depicting the different states we're in. And the more relaxed we are, we have memory recall, and then even more relaxed, we have subconscious recall, and then more relaxed, superconscious recall or awareness. So yeah, it's you don't teach psychicness, but what you do is you bust paradigms, like what the show is doing. You break out a paradigm jail of this isn't possible to this is possible, which is something I wrote down I wanted to talk about later. But I want to go to the hill, because we were talking about the hill and how the kids get together on what they call the hill and have a little party in other dimensions and talk to each other. Do you want to explain for people that haven't been watching the show what the hill is?
Yeah. And this was, I think, one of the hardest things for me to grasp at first was that when I met maybe my okay, it stopped for a minute, but now I think I'm back.
Yeah, we can still hear you though. Yeah,
okay, good.
But,
okay, so I think maybe my 4th or 5th non-speaker speller that had met was Houston, and I went down to Atlanta, and I remember Katie being like, there's a hill where they all can hang out and communicate, and it's kind of like a channel, like a CB radio that they can tune into. And she's like, I don't know, how many, but I know that like Houston does this with his friends. And I thought, what? And then didn't know what to make of it, just took it in, and then went down there. And then I met Houston's good friend, John Paul. And while we were there, he put a bunch of pillows over his head and was doing something. And I asked Libby, what is happening? And she said, he's on the hill. After school or after anything, he'll run up and put the pillows on his head and block out as much as he can to really try to tune in. And she's like, sometimes he laughs and sometimes he cries, and he could be there for 2 hours. And she's like, but I know his girlfriend's on the hill too, because sometimes they'll both be on the hill for a certain amount of time. And like the second he runs downstairs to tell me he wants to see Lily, I'll get a text from Lily's family saying, I want to see John Paul, because those two were boyfriend and girlfriend. And so that I was like, okay, the hill is something in Atlanta. I know that there's this close-knit community there, and the non-speakers there are saying that they can tune in. We have no reason to like make that up, but I just thought it's Atlanta based, or these 3 friends or 5 friends or whatever. Although I will say that when I was there, I think the second time with John Paul, I said, well, how many people are on the hill right now? And he spelled out, I don't remember the exact number, but something like 4,137. I said, what? Why are there so many people there today? And he said, because everyone's aware of the documentary and they're excited about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's cool. But then where it gets really wild is that at one point, I forgot which parent, they said there's a minister in a mega church in Arizona, Kai, and he has figured all this out on his own about non-speakers and the telepathy and their spiritual gifts. And he's writing a book. You should call him, because he is just now figuring it out. And I said, yeah. So I hop on Zoom with him. And he starts saying, there's still stuff I'm trying to figure out, like 2 non-speakers, we're talking about someplace called the Hill, and I don't know what that is. And I was like, oh, what? And then I meet a teacher in Illinois, rural Illinois. And she said, not a suburban Illinois. And she said, yeah, my students are talking about going to a place called the Hill. And often there they talk with people in other countries, and they learn about, bee colony collapse or time travel. And I'm like, what is happening? And then there's a man in Israel, and he said that his son goes to Hill, but it's a different one. So yeah. And then I started meeting people after the podcast came out who maybe knew non-speakers 20, 30 years ago. And one of them in the talk tracks, which is like our companion series, said that, that the non-speaker in this woman's life called it the lollipop line, but it was like a place where you could all go and talk and communicate and hang out. And
Yeah.
so when she was first hearing the telepathy tape, she's like, "Oh, I wonder if this person is going to bring up the lollipop line." And, but we called it the Hill. I mean, that's what Houston, I think, seemingly named it the Hill. So it's been going on for a long time.
It has been going on for a long time. Stephen Simon and Neil Donald Walsh from the Conversation with God series made a movie called Indigo 20 years ago about the indigo children all having a party in, super conscious space. They didn't call it the Hill, but they're on what I call the psychic internet. It's like they're on the psychic and they all connect with each other and have parties and stuff like that. So as I say, this conversation has been talked about and movies have been made about it and all sorts of things, but it's a subject that's time has come. The collective consciousness is waking up, we are awakening as a human race. And so your podcast is getting it out there, which just makes me want to cry. I Dan on the Hill, I want to tell you my experience. I asked, if I could go to the Hill to my mob, to my guides, and I got no. I asked twice and I got no twice. And I'm like, why? And they said, you have to be invited. And I said, why do I have to be invited? And they said, I wrote this down because I couldn't remember what they said. It's since the release of the telepathy tapes and the exposure of the Hill, many have been reaching out to our secret place, and we are protecting it more now. They also said anyone can create a sacred space or a plane to gather and talk with each other. Anyone. It's somewhat like a Zoom room. And so I didn't try again because I got no. And but they said if I want to come, I can come. But I haven't tried again. But they said, no, we're protecting it now. Our little cyber Zoom room in consciousness.
I know. And it's so interesting because I understand how people would want to go there. It's just like, even though Harry Potter was a fictional thing, people try to get into the platform 9 3/4 when we're running into a cement wall, and in the train station in London. So I get that people want to go to these places that are like inaccessible and mythical and amazing. But I do feel like that, like I really want to try to protect the Hill and encourage people to, it is a sacred spot, and it's actually interesting. There's 2 non-speakers that I know of that are kind of started a relationship at the physical Hill shoot. And I was talking to one of the mothers the other day, and she said, my kids are saying, these 2 are saying it's so crowded at the Hill that they go to another place now called the Yellow Room.
Okay.
Like, and I've actually heard of the Yellow Room before. So, who knows where that is.
And then,
But then we have like a chat, like a text chain with a lot of the families, all of the families who are involved in the podcast and some of the teachers and stuff. And I've sent some things out about the Hill and be like, is this cool that people are going? And I mean, I have not met a non-speaker who does not act from a place of love and inclusion. But one thing that I have been told is that so many people who think they're going there aren't really going there. They're going to something similar, but they're not totally inside, like a waiting room, if you will,
Shirley says here, the Hill reminds me of the last scene in the movie, The Lost Mimsy. I have not seen that, but
me either.
I would love to be good at telepathy. And Susan has a question here. How are the families dealing with their newfound popularity? Good question, Susan. Thank you for that. Yeah,
that's a great question. So the non-speakers feel it. I've had many conversations about this. They feel the energy is on them. They feel the world is looking at them. Yeah. And I think for the most part, it's welcome because they feel there's change coming and there's finally this like respect and, hope, I think, for them and their lives in the air. So I think for many, many families, it's a wonderful thing. And I think too, like I've talked to some families who said, look, I have other kids, whatever. And like our whole family's life is always revolved around everyone else. And it's never like we're going on a college visit or, to a basketball game for the non-speaker. It's always everyone else. And they have been saying, now it's like, we're going to go on this hill shoot for this, or we're going to go to this, whatever. And so I think there's like more getting out and doing stuff and feeling excited. And for the non-speakers involved, at least in the project, it's been so cool to watch them rise to the occasion. And by that, I mean, like the hill shoot again is a good example, because there's so many non-speakers that descended on North Carolina for this. And we were being told in advance by parents, I don't know, I don't think they can travel more than 2 hours. Like planes are really hard. The world is really unforgiving. If they start making noises or jumping up and down or going down the aisles, like people don't get it. And I don't think they can sit still. I mean, there's complete anxiety. And when everyone got there, it was just like, they were great on the plane. They were great. They can travel. They can do this. And it was like, yes. And I think the non-speakers knew, they're like, I got to do this. So I can see more of the world in some way, So I think I have all the faith in the world, in the power and presence and abilities of the non-speakers. And I think that they're going to keep rising to the occasion. So anyway, and I think most of it's good. I actually haven't heard anything negative, except for some of the folks who are upset that the telepathy is being brought into the spelling equation. But other than that, it's been really positive and a ton of excitement. And just on that note too, I've done a few gut checks where I will send an email out or text, or I have like a non-speaking advisory board where I would say, hey, is this too much? Like, should we stop going? Because the second you say pencils down, I'll put the pencils down. Like, should we not do?
No.
Yeah. Like, should we not do the movie? Should we not do this? Like, is it too much? And everything has been keep going, change message. Like, be a critical mass. Yeah. And even like little Amelia, who's the youngest, and like last year I went with her and her mom and my kids actually to Disneyland in California here. And Amelia hadn't really spelled much all day. There's a ton of stimulation at Disneyland. Like, we were going on a lot of roller coasters, and I thought, she's probably not going to spell much today. And we sat down at lunch, we're eating, and then she like spelled out something about like, make that movie. And I was like, okay, like everyone really wants this message to keep being pushed out, because it's going to help, right? You need hearts and minds to really change anything.
Absolutely. Well, as someone who's been doing it for years and talking about it for years and being called crazy, and, the prejudice, you talk about the prejudice with the spellers and the autistic kids. I mean, the prejudice around people who believe in psychic ability and talk to angels and, and fly around the cosmos. There's huge prejudice. So it's just the awakening. It's so exciting to see. It's so exciting. Yeah. Let's talk about Asher. So I'm in episode 5, you've got the teachers talking about their abilities and how they're telepathically communicating with kids. So it sort of goes into how it's not just obviously autistic children who are telepathic. Anyone can develop it. And then in 6, you get into scientific evidence of ESP that shatters the materialistic paradigm. And you also talk about pets. Oh, and 7, you've got Asher reading books by putting his hand over books and goes into the unified field and can know anything. Do you want to speak about that?
Yeah, it's a big mystery. So Asher is a young man in England, and he's fascinating actually, because he started out as a speaker. He had severe autism. I don't know if he has apraxia, though. I don't think he does. But then he shows at some point, I don't want to speak. This is too complicated. It weights me down. It keeps me too much in my body. I want to be other places and do other things. And his mother died when he was pretty young. And even though he was being cared for by his father, his mother on her deathbed basically asked the teacher, Jess, like, please look after him. Be good to him, take care of him, just make sure he's okay. He adores you as a teacher. And has kept good on that promise. And now he's like a grown man, and they're still in each other's lives. And I've heard a version of this type of story now a few times with different families or teachers, where for a long time, it was just a relationship, growing, learning, helping, assisting both each other. It's a two-way street. But at some point, Jess received like a telepathic message from Asher. And that really blew her mind. And she didn't know if it was real. She had to validate, okay, he's telling me this, but I have to go double check and triple check. And finally, like after enough times of doing that, she was like, I have to just let this be now that he is communicating with me via telepathy, now that he's chosen to like relinquish his voice. so that was like the final, I think, miracle in their story. But one of the miracles when he was younger was she was trying to understand him better and was taking out books from the library to try to catch up on some of these scientific and spiritual and metaphysical topics he wanted to talk about. And one of the books was really dense and heavy and confusing. And she asked him to help explain it. And because at the point he was still speaking, and he said, put your hand on the book. And she did that. And she said all the information absorbed into her. She understood it. She had a clarity. And it was interesting because I was talking in that episode, actually talk about another father in Israel. And I said, have you ever heard of this? Like, can your son do this? And he said, yeah, but he can do it if he's in someone's field. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, because I'm learning now about fields, because this has come up over and over again. And it just clicked a few weeks ago, which we can talk about more in a second. And then as far as that field thing goes, that also happened with, like, there's a young woman in the film that wasn't in the podcast, and she understands plants. Actually, we're going to talk about this. It's going to be the season premiere of season 2. She understands all of like medicinal cures. I have no one knows how she can do it, but she will tell you, she'll prescribe like a Chinese herb, or to, have, I don't even know what these things are called, like wormwood with whatever, some herbal combination to cure an ailment that she can see in your body. And how? And then there's another young man that's actually in the film that's not in the podcast, who he is able to speak fluent Spanish, but only if someone who speaks Spanish is in the room.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's almost like he needs to take it from the field, or can take it out of the field. And I don't understand this. This is why science needs to look into it. But it's something. Yeah.
So what you're saying is he's not taking it from the field, he's taking it from their field.
Their field.
From their field rather than the field. Like, so he's tapping into their language.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so fascinating.
And like I said, so much of this, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like when people ask me for questions, I'm just like, I don't know half of this, right? Like I'm just reporting what I'm learning. But Marianne Harrington, who's amazing, and she's one of the first teachers that was really shouting this from the rooftops. And I would say 30, 40 years ago, she was taking videotapes and sending them off to people saying, this is real, this is happening, this is in my classroom, pay attention. And people thought, no, you're just a special ed teacher from Wisconsin, we're not going to look at it, and she was really met with, like you said, just complete dismissal and ridicule. So one of the things that becomes amazing, right, is she, after she retires and some of the students in her class grow up, now they're working with her all the time, spelling. And she's been working on some books with, an individual.
Yeah, we could still hear you. Keep talking. You've frozen, but we can hear you. Maybe we lost you.
Again. Is it back?
Yeah, we only lost you for a second. We could hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to Susan says here, just something before I miss them. Yes, thanks for considering their well-being. I have a very sensitive son who was a late talker. He's not autistic, but he's neurodivergent. Love that. Neurodivergent. Yeah. And Lisha says here, when I was binge watching the episode, or binge listening, I think, rather than watching months ago, I was telepathically told just before waking up that our abilities are not understood and we want to be taken seriously. I also want to tell you something that Lisha said. We'll get back to what you're saying, but I wrote it down. Lisha said in the group this morning, back in April, when I was behind a vehicle that posted that they had an autistic child in the car. So I excitedly sent out a friendly hello through her mental abilities and mentioned the Telepathy Tapes podcast. They ended up making a right turn, and as they did, I saw two little hands reaching out of the car window, kind of like flapping and waving up and down. Fast forward maybe 2 weeks later, and I'm literally woken up by some hands flapping in my face. It was so real. I opened my mouth to kind of get air and react, and then I connected the dots. So that sort of little being in that car was sort of with her while she was in her sleep state. Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
I love these stories. The
Yeah.
impact. I'm sure that there are millions of stories like that,
Mhm.
like what your podcast has done for people all over the world, woken them up. Is amazing. But sorry, what were you saying before I interrupted?
No, I was just saying that with the field. So Marianne Harrington, at some point when she started working with the adult non-speakers, she said, "I'm learning a lot more, and I have a feeling that if that they're limited by the field of the person they're around." Um, which there is no hard, fast truth about any of this, right? These are all people just cobbling together their truths of what they're understanding from their own experience. But what she said at one point, that one of the young men she was working with was like, "I am very, very good at like physics and XYZ, but it would be helpful if a physician was here or a physicist was here, so that I
Yeah.
could like to grab the nomenclature and stuff from his field." So she's like, I do think there's something about like being able to take from like a greater field, like whether you call that the Akashic record or like the great whatever, and something binding all the information in the universe, or taking from an individual's field. And I think that both happen. And I don't know how.
Vladdy has a question here.
Mhm.
I wonder if they can connect and read the field of
Mm.
the earth, because it says
Yeah.
that you can read all the history of the earth from its field. Great question. I'm sure you
Great
can, Vladdy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I think that what we explore on the shows and what Kai has come to understand, that anything is possible
Yeah.
inside consciousness. Like
Yeah.
anything is possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me just do a
Yeah.
quick
And
station break.
on
Hold that.
Asher. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold that thought. We just need to do
Okay.
a station break. Hold that thought.
Okay, got it.
Here we go.
You're listening to ATP
Station ID break.
Media, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM. Syndicated radio hitting about 120 countries and streaming on 8 platforms.
And my guest today is Kai Dickens, the creator and director of the Telepathy Takes, the smash hit podcast show. I don't know what we call it, that went viral, hit number 1 for a while, but is waking up, smashing paradigms, waking up the world to the possibility of who we are through these amazing beings that have come to Earth to show us through these autistic children. Like when I met Giddy 9 years ago, I was so honored to meet this masterful soul that had taken on a body that we wouldn't, as normal people, call masterful. But such masters live inside these little broken bodies. I've explored that on the show before with Dr. Leo Galland and his son, Christopher, who died about 30 years ago, who was mentally challenged, who channeled through Dr. Leo Galland a book called Already Here. And just one of my favorite books, just these masterful souls that are coming to teach us about who we are. Sorry, what were you saying before I did the station ID break?
No, I just thought, someone asked a really good question and it made me think about this, that on our Supercast channel, that if you go to Supercast Telepathy Tapes, you can find it.
Oh,
And that's
about
like
the field of the
private.
earth, Vladdy and the field
No,
of
like
the
that's
earth.
that private group we have, like the pre where you get the podcast without ads. But there's a bulletin board you can ask anything, and I do truly kind of try to find the answers. And someone said, "Can the non-speakers tell us anything like complex? Like, I mean, like, they can tell you many things complex, but can you find out like how the pyramids were made, or how this happened, or how this happened?" So I sent that off to actually Asher, because I was like, he'll be the best one for this. And he answered all those questions, so we posted them there. And they're
Did
interesting.
you?
Yeah.
Well, there are questions that people ask channels and psychics as well. Once you tap into the field of infinite intelligence, you can access anything. I think about The Matrix. Not my favorite movies. I know they were viral movies, but I didn't love them. But there was a scene in The Matrix where somebody needed to learn something, and he says, "Can you download it to me?" And his eyes start flickering, and then he downloads what he needs to do. I think that is all becoming possible, that we can start just tapping into the field of infinite possibility, the unified field, as Deepak calls it, the unified field of infinite creative potential, and just download what we need. And these kids are masterful. They just like swim and play in the field. They're just playing in the field. Yeah. Diagnosing health problems. What am I writing here? In episode 8, you get into the spelling and all the prejudice around the spelling,
Mhm.
and how they a lot of the kids aren't taught in school. And as I was listening to it, I was thinking that our education system is so dumbed down, and these kids are so expansive and have
Yeah.
access to the field that they're kind of lucky that they're not being taught in our mainstream education system, because they don't really need it. Like, as you say, many of them can speak other languages. A lot of the parents discover once they start communicating with their children that they know how to speak all these other languages, and they've got just this amazing knowledge that is not being taught in school. Do you want to speak
Yeah,
into
but I
that?
do think that just, first and foremost, right, they're individuals. They're and often age appropriate individuals who might have access to the spiritual side, but I almost feel like it's more like a higher self coming through. Just like all of us, we kind of have our two selves. And you might have your body where you're at. And so I think that it's so important for like a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old to be with their peers, to be able to attend classrooms, to be able to engage with your friends and family and do things that are completely age appropriate and interesting. And so schools are so important. And, I think the spelling situation is just agonizing. It feels like a human rights violation the world over. Um, and I, if I think anyone were to go spend time with a speller and their families, it's like they are pointing to letters. Why is this so scary? Why is this, and I don't know. I mean, it's interesting talking to parents and teachers because so many of them think it's money related, right? Like ABA
Oh,
therapy, behavioral therapy is a billion-dollar industry, at least in America it is. And that is working on behavior. Well, if you have apraxia, you're not going to be able to behave, right? And so, but it's a billion-dollar industry. And if you were to teach spelling, that doesn't fit into ABA therapy and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, like we are starting to work with some strategists and people to think about how we can really shake this up and change it. Because beyond that, it's like really good spelling coaches need to get trained, but also be available. Like there's, I think, 3 in all of England. And it just, I know that even in Connecticut, like one of the film subjects, there was no spelling coach for miles. So hopefully that's changing. I desperately encourage, if you're interested in all of this, for people to get accredited. There's something called Communication for All. There's the rapid prompting method. There's the spellers method. Those are just good gateways to learn how to spell and become a communication partner. And yeah, I mean, the best thing someone can do if they're fascinated and interested is get involved in a speller's life, be their friend. Like Lily, who's a non-speaker, she's become such good friends with her communication regulation partner, Lizzie. And Lizzie knows all the stuff. Like when I saw her, I'm like, okay, are you aware about the telepathy and the ghosts? And she's like, oh yeah, yep. Just like, yes. Um, but it's great. And Lily was in her wedding. So just engaging with the non-speakers and giving them the life we have with friends and community is so important.
yeah, absolutely. Susan, no, who is it? Susan saying here that Ash's former teacher,
Mhm.
Jess Kurtzen,
Yeah.
is working on another book. Can't wait to read that.
Yeah. Me
Yeah,
too.
so she's obviously written a book.
Mhm.
That was the teacher, for people confused because of so many names that we're throwing around. I know it gets confusing. That was the teacher that Asha taught her how to read a book by putting her hand over a book, and
Mhm.
showed her that just by putting the hand over the book, you could read the whole book,
Yeah.
or just get an idea of exactly what's in the book, what it's all about. Yeah, and Vladdy says here that he found that funny too, that spiritual kids were confused why the teachers were asking for the answers if they already knew the answers. Don't know what you quite mean by that, but I want to play. I hope this works. I just want to play a couple of. Here we go. Episode 10. I just want to play a short from the show. People in the chat, please let me know if you can hear this. I've actually never done this before. This is on the telepathy tape.
Before Cyrus started preschool, I went to observe the last 15 minutes of class. I was waiting to speak to the teacher after she was done with everything. And so there was one boy that was on the floor, laying on his back, just having a tantrum for I don't know how many minutes, but I was there for 15 minutes. So at least 5 minutes he was having a tantrum. And so his dad rushes in and he's worried and he's talking to the teacher and he says, he's been doing this a lot lately for no reason. And in my mind, I thought, there's always a reason. You know, the teacher was like, oh, are you taking him outside to the park? And I'm thinking, he's not having constant like tantrums because of not going to the park enough. So I was like, this kid is probably telepathic and is picking up on whatever is going on around him, maybe his parents, something that's going on at home. So I was like, let me test this out, you know? And so I was like focusing on him and I imagined hearts just circling around his face. And the second that I imagined that, he got quiet, his jaw dropped, his eyes got wide, like he was like scared of like kind of like, whoa, what is that? I've never seen something like that. And not only that, but his eyes were just like following the hearts going in a circle that was in my imagination. I was shocked, so I stopped imagining the hearts instantly. As soon as I stopped, he just was like kind of like shook it off and then went right back to this tantrum. I was just like, whoa, it's real. They told me it's just the mother-son connection and we don't have a connection. I don't even know this kid. He can see what's in my imagination and he's reacting to it.
Just beautiful, which speaks to that thing that Lisha did by telepathically reaching out to a child in traffic. And yeah, I just loved that. But we can do that to anyone. Like you can do that in a supermarket where a kid is having a tantrum. You can reach out in your mind and send a message to that child that will stop them in their tracks, because everyone's communicating telepathically.
Yeah.
I read in the Seth books many years ago in my 20s, Seth said, which was exalted wisdom channeled through a channel in the 60s, a woman called Jane Roberts. She brought through the Seth material. And Seth said that we're all operating telepathically on our planet, but for the most part, we're not aware of it. But we couldn't drive on our roads if we were not. But we're all connected, and so yeah, we can do that deliberately, like send loving hearts or pink energy or love. We can do it. It's beautiful. What do you want to say about that, Kai?
Well, I mean, I think you're right. Like any space you're in, if you see a non-speaker, someone with apraxia, I mean, I will often just say in my mind, like, I'm holding space for you. Like, I know that you can't control your body and this isn't who you are, but like who you are is amazing and you're loved and you're safe here. And, it's just like, because anxiety, I think I've learned, is such a huge, huge marker of so many lives of, I think, non-speakers for sure, but a lot of people with autism, because you're feeling all the time like you're breaking a norm and making people mad and people are yelling at you or people are scared of you or people are frustrated about this. It's just like, can you imagine the anxiety that would come with that? So just to beam like, you're safe, I've got you, you're loved, you're okay. I know this isn't who you are is amazing. Just beam that over and over. Actually, to anyone truly that you see having a hard time.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. We've got about 15 minutes to go. And I wanted to talk about intention versus belief, because you explore with Adam Curry in the talk tracks in episode 9. He gets into belief in the subconscious mind and talk about psi abilities. I love, like, we've rebranded psychic abilities or intuition. We now call it psi, and we don't call UFOs anymore. We call them UAPs. And we don't call them aliens anymore. We call them non-human intelligence, NHIs. I love how it's all been rebranded. But before we go, this just is going so quickly. Thank you for staying on. I want to play this from, so that was from the Telepathy Tracks YouTube channel.
Talk
this
Tracks,
is another one. Talk Tracks. This is from share screen. This is from your YouTube channel as well. It's just in episode 10, the children speak. And I'm going to cry just talking about this. I'm very teary today, but anyway, this is, again, let me know if that people can hear it. This is something that's beautiful.
Next, we'll meet Noah and Adriana, who are siblings and remarkable energy healers based in Indiana. I met them both over Zoom a few years ago, and though they weren't in this season of the tapes, they were essential to it in ways that I just can't explain. Here's Noah communicating through Melissa Graves, who has opened up communication channels in the family that are amazing. But I don't want to dive into that yet because theirs is a story we'll share next season.
We all are connected, and I can't express that enough. Our thoughts build the world. Our thoughts are heard by the world. Our thoughts are felt by the world. Even if the words aren't said, the feeling is there.
Noah's sister Adriana also worked with Melissa to communicate her thoughts for this episode.
Every child comes through with spirit eyes. Every child comes through with the connection to source. Every child comes through with the ability to speak telepathy. It is the trained behaviors that break those abilities, that take them away from us.
Again, amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And this is something that when Giddy came to see me 9 years ago, he's 18 now, and his mother was desperately trying to talk. I was telling her about how she's already communicating telepathically with him. I don't think they were using letters. I didn't know about any of that stuff back then. Now I know. So I'm more informed about how you can communicate with the letterboards. But yeah, every mother communicates telepathically with their babies. Babies aren't speaking about their needs, but a mother knows. You hear it all the time. Oh, she's hungry. He's hungry. He needs to change his nappy. Like there is already that telepathic communication going on. And as soon as the child starts to communicate through language, we start to lose that bond, that connection. Did you find that with your kids, Kai, that you had that telepathic communication with them when they were babies?
You know, I don't know. I mean, because I wasn't tuned into any of that then. You know what I mean? Like it'd be so different having them now. Like certainly
Right.
there was like intuition and yeah, it's got to be telepathy where I'd wake up and there was one night I remember in particular where I woke up in a panic, freaking out, and like ran into my daughter's room, and the hat that she was wearing had been like pulled all the way over her head. And I was like a hot mess, freaking out, that like air had, but it was like a knit cap. So she was breathing just fine. Like just if you put a sweater, you'd be able to breathe through it. But just the panic of like seeing something covering her head and ripping it off. And I didn't know what that was, and I also think about my younger brother when he was little, when he was a teenager, but, I mean, I guess only able to tell the story. Like he was planning to attempt suicide. And I had a dream one night where I like woke up and like went into his room and like found where the pills were hidden that he was planning to take, just like really weird stuff like that. So certainly I've had rushes with how did I know that? How did I know that? Right. And like,
Yeah.
both happened when I was asleep. So I often am like, okay, clearly this is where that happens to me the most. All my experiences are that way. But yeah, I think it's always there with all of us. Are you tuned into it? Are you open to it?
Yeah. It's really about awareness, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
like when you're not aware of it, you don't see it. When you're aware of it, you see it. There's a message here from Kerry Vore. Love the telepathy take so much. You are a blessing, Kai. Thanks for the interview, Karen and Lisha. What's Lisha saying?
Yeah.
Is there a date yet for season 2 when it begins?
Yeah, let's talk about that. We are working on it all the time right now. It's such a joy. So October 15th. And I was a little bit like, how are we going to do this? Like, what's the goal of the second season, right? Like the season 1 was really wanting to bring people into this world that like, yes, telepathy is possible, like break down, if we can validate this through this group, like what else is possible. So in season 2, it's like a deep looking into consciousness, right? And what it means. And I feel like by the end of season 2, I hope a lot of people will be walking away feeling as though that season kind of validated the proof of soul and that consciousness extends and survives the body. And it's really interesting. I mean, I'm fascinated doing these interviews with people and learning what I'm learning. So I think it's going to be quite an astounding ride for folks. I'm very excited for it. So October 15th. And I think it's going to be 11 episodes.
So will that be on all the platforms like YouTube, Spotify, or
Everything.
Apple,
Yeah.
And is it an
everything.
audio podcast as well, or is there visual? I like
No,
the
so
visual.
okay,
I'm very
so
visual.
this is kind of like the map that we're doing right now. So just like season 1, season 2 is like sort of like documentary storytelling, right? There's gonna be many pieces and people coming together to tell the story. Season 2, what's kind of fun is like we have like elders from like the Lakota tribe in North America and like a Colombian elder from, like we have a lot of indigenous, not a lot, but we have indigenous folks, people from all over the world, people speaking different languages. So visually, like you can't financially, we couldn't do that because you'd have to travel with all the cameras everywhere. So the second season, just like the first, will be audio only. We're working with maybe doing some like animation or cool visuals and stuff with it.
Yeah.
And as people might know, so after season 1 wrapped, we started something called the Talk Tracks, where we're really kind of going through like the mailbag of questions that we're getting and answering them, but also so many experts and other stories have been flooding in. And what's nice is, we've been hearing from a lot of listeners, it's like as satiating and interesting as the telepathy tapes itself, because they're kind of meeting new characters and do this. So the Talk Tracks is every other week between seasons. And then season 2 will be these deep dives. Like if you imagine that a Talk Tracks episode we spend a week on, each episode of a season we're spending like 5-6 weeks on. So
wow,
the seasons are really like in depth and like
more personal. You get to meet and hear the personal stories, whereas the talk tracks are more you go over the stories, but it's more like informative information. You're talking to scientists, you're talking to neuroscientists, like, I don't know, Dr. Shields, what's his name? I wrote it all down. Rupert Sheldrake and all sorts of people. And Moby says here, I can't believe it, Moby, you're the only one in the world. Maybe not. This is my first time learning about the telepathy tapes. I'm so grateful. This is truly paradigm shifting. Thank you so much. Thanks, Moby. Can't believe this is the first time hearing about it. But anyway, it's nice that we're able to spread the message. I wanted to talk about, on the talk tracks, you're speaking with, who was I? So Adam Curry.
Oh, Adam Curry.
About intention versus belief. You explore psi ability, the effects, and he gets into belief with the subconscious mind and psi. I want psi to be real. Who said that? I will be afraid if it's real. Oh yeah, I was thinking he was talking about the beliefs that we hold around this, and it's how we create our reality. I did a whole show on it the other day, and it was so fascinating for me because he was saying some of the beliefs that we come up with. And I was listening to two men postulating about the headline was, debunking the telepathy tapes. Two men postulating about how it's all rubbish. And I'm like, I bet they haven't even listened to this series, but it bumped up against their paradigm, against their beliefs. Yeah. And so when opening it, you're hitting your beliefs. You have an intention to do something. And some of those subconscious beliefs can be, I want psi to be real, or I'll be afraid if it is real, or is psi normal, or it's impossible, or it's woo-woo. I mean, these are some of the beliefs that we hold around it. And as I say, teaching people about their psychic ability or reminding people about their psychic ability is not teaching anyone to be psychic. It's changing their beliefs around it. And so often people say, I don't know how to do this. You have to be special, or you have to be autistic, or you have to be, you have to be different to who I am. So they have a belief they're bumping up against that they don't know how to do it. So working with people and psi abilities or psychic abilities is actually working with their subconscious beliefs. Do you want to chat about what you and Adam were talking about? We've got 8 minutes left.
Yeah. I think we should talk about something different, just because with that talk tracks, it was so long ago that I don't remember what him and I talked about, and I don't want to misquote him.
All right, cool.
I don't want to misquote him, but I do think it is possible. And well, I can say this though, because is that belief is really important, and people will pin that off and be, oh, a skeptic. Oh, of course you have to believe it to see it. And it's like, okay, you can say that, and I understand why maybe that sounds fishy, but it's so true. And we know it's true because you think about the placebo effect that is well accepted in science. And a certain percentage of people believing something has their body change or cancer shrink or their skin condition go away because they believed the pill was real. That shows you the power of belief. And it's happened a few times while filming the telepathy tapes or creating the podcast where, like I remember this one time with Akil. The telepathy was unbelievable. And it's like the more he did it and the more excited we were getting, the more he was doing, like even going to a different room where his mom wasn't in that room. And even his mom was like, this is good. You're seeing this. Sometimes you won't do it, and then a producer came who I'd never met. She was just like a local producer. And we had gone to a park And I was like, oh, I can't. And then, okay. So he starts doing the telepathy test, and there was like a glare hitting his iPad, and he was having a hard time. And she's like, oh, okay. So it's not real. You guys are doing it through like magic. I'm like, no, it is real. There's a glare hitting his iPad. He can't spell. Like he has to see what he's spelling. And she's like, I don't believe it. And I'm like, what? I was like, well, let's just go home and see. Like it's hot. Everyone's hot. We're sweating. There's glares. Let's just go home and we'll do it. So we go back to Akil's house. And I'm so excited for her to do the telepathy test. And she's like whispering in my ear. She's like, this isn't possible. Like you realize, like, I want to know how it works. Like, what's the trick? I'm like, there is no trick. And then we start doing the telepathy part, putting random numbers in front of him, and he like wouldn't do it. And he just looked blankly at them. And she was kind of like, see, he's not in there. Like, and I was like, who is this woman? So I kind of was like, you need to please go outside and, you can do your work, and just maybe you can sit in the production van and just hang out. Like he just might need to feel more comfortable. And I didn't want to make her feel bad. But so she goes outside, not really knowing what's going on. The second she was out of the house, he was like going like this again. And his mom was like, he won't do it if someone doesn't believe it. Like throws static into the system. Or maybe it's just like, why even bother?
Yeah.
But on the flip side, and that happened with John Paul too. John Paul was hearing a bunch of like the stuff. So we weren't able to film a lot of telepathy tests on camera with him. But when we took the cameras off, took the crew away, and just put him in a room with two neuroscientists, Dr. Powell and Dr. Jeff Tarrant, who was doing a brain scan, John Paul got every single one right. But then Houston, on the other hand, who's like I said, is a big leader in the project. Every single time there's doubters, like at the Hill at one point, there's like so many people. There's a huge amount of crew and stuff. We were just like, let's do this. And at this point, we'd seen like critiques of tests online. So we're like, let's hit all the critiques. Like we'll have partitions up between. We'll blindfolds on Houston, blindfolds on Katie. We have other people do the telepathy test with Houston, not just Katie. And Houston, every single time, he got him right. It was amazing. And I think the crew was stunned. But for Houston, he was like, I want to prove the doubters. So I think, of course, there's no hard, fast rule, but I think overall belief is very, very important.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Dying One, you're just doing such an amazing job. But before we go, we've got 4 minutes. I wanted to say thank you too for episode 7 of the talk track, telepathy between species. What's the beautiful woman that you had on there? I didn't write down her.
Anna Breitenbach.
Yeah, I was listening to
that's like my favorite episode. Like I have not let my kids, and they could. They're just not interested in what I'm doing, I don't think. But like they're little, they're 11 and 6. But
they'll get there.
We were in Sweden, and I thought I was trying to tell them that everything you do, everything you think matters. And I played that episode of the talk tracks for them about interspecies communication. And this woman who really, I think, convincingly is the real deal, can communicate with insects and elephants and horses, and you could just see for kids especially, it's like their jaw was on the ground, and it's changed them thinking about it that way. And I love that episode. So whoever said that, like our hearts are well attuned, because that's one of my favorite talk tracks episodes.
Yeah, I was listening because I was saying to the group, I thought I'd listen to all of them. I was listening to it last night to brush up, and I'm like, I must have missed this one. But I haven't heard her speak before. I must not have listened to the whole thing, but I listened to the whole thing last night. And I've had many animal communicators on the show, but I've never had anyone that communicates with wild animals.
Yeah.
And it was so fascinating to hear what the wild animals were saying and how they interpret what us humans do. Because domestic animals are used to the human, the silly human, the things that humans do. But wild animals, like the monkeys, couldn't understand why we cooked the food.
Yeah, they thought we were murdering it. We set it on a table and let it sit there, and then we hit it with knives and put fire on it. And
it's just fantastic. It was fantastic. So again, thank you for everything that you're doing, and thanks for everyone that's tuned in, and thanks for coming on the show. It's been a long time coming. It's just been such a joy, such a pleasure, and I just want to thank you again. I know that there's lots of love coming out of the chat for what you're doing. You are breaking paradigms. You're changing the world. I mean, I've been hacking away at this conversation for such a long time, but not getting the traction. And I don't need to get the traction. It's not about me being famous. It's about the information getting out there and shifting the collective subconscious and breaking paradigms. It's amazing. It is definitely, we've been talking about it in the spiritual community. We talk about ascension, and we're shifting, and we're moving to a new experience on planet Earth. but watching how this podcast show is a part of that and how it's doing it, and how these children, these amazing children, like I've been watching how people are speaking to AI like spirit guides, and you know, the onslaught of AI is changing the world, and the knowing about these children is changing the world. It's just brilliant. Indigo says brilliant. Thank you. Shirley said best conversation. Thanks, darling one. Susan says thank you. Carrie says anyway, lots of love to you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. You know?
And thank those beautiful children for being quiet, because I know it's a Sunday afternoon and they've had to be quiet.
I'm home alone with both this weekend, so they were saints. It's like a miracle my son didn't come over and ask me to buy something for his Roblox game on the iPad.
Time. Big love to everyone. Thanks everyone tuning in.
Thank you so much, Karen, for all you do.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye.